Decay. The learning objectives are: name the organisms involved in the decay process, describe the conditions needed for aerobic decay, explain why these conditions are needed for decay, and explain the uses of decay at home or in industry. So, plants take in minerals from the soil, animals eat plants and it passes through the food chains, and then either when they die or when they defecate, they decay and are broken down and digested by microorganisms. So trees can shed their leaves in autumn, animals produce droppings, animals and plants die, and these materials are recycled by decomposers, which are bacteria and fungi. But before the decomposers come along, there are detritivores. So detritivores are the first things that come along to a dead carcass or dead material. And the dead material, dead or decaying material, is called detritus. So these detritivores, such as worms, maggots, woodlice, these detritus feeders start the decay process and they will produce carbon dioxide. So the detritus feeders eat dead organisms and they produce their own waste material, like their own droppings, their own waste gases, their own feces, etc. And as I said before, examples of detritus feeders are maggots, worms, woodlice, etc. And the advantage of that is, of them coming along first, is their mouth parts. Flies are also an example as well, maggots turn into flies. The mouth parts will digest the larger pieces of carcass or larger pieces of droppings into even smaller pieces. And as we know, the smaller something is, the larger the surface area to volume ratio. So by the detritus coming along and breaking those pieces down, they increase the surface area for the decomposers to come along. So decomposers are bacteria and fungi, and they digest everything that's left. So they digest dead animals, plants, detritivores, their feces, basically anything that's left over. And they will have to use some nutrients to grow and reproduce, and they also release waste such as carbon dioxide, water, minerals. So the best conditions for most microorganisms, or most aerobic microorganisms, and therefore the best conditions for decay, are oxygen, warmth, and moisture. So oxygen, obviously, aerobic respiration. Just bear in mind that some decomposers are anaerobic, but we'll go on to that next lesson. But for the purposes of this lesson, we'll say that the decomposers that work in compost heaps, etc., need oxygen because they need to be able to respire aerobically. They need warmth because, well, they need sort of body temperature because around 37 degrees C speeds up chemical reactions. If it was too warm, if it was over 45 degrees, then the enzymes would denature, so that wouldn't be good. If it was too cold, then the chemical reactions, the enzymes would work too slowly. So we want like an optimum amount of warmth, about 37 degrees C. And they also need moisture to prevent the microorganisms from drying out. And it also makes the food molecules easier to dissolve. So use of decomposers. So sewage treatment plants use microorganisms to break down the waste we produce. So it makes it safe to be released. And the sewage works are designed to provide bacteria and other microorganisms with what they need, including a good supply of oxygen. So they can actually bubble oxygen through the waste to provide the aerobic conditions for the bacteria to respire. Compost heaps. So compost is very good, full of minerals, good for the plants. So what would the optimum compost heap look like? Well, you would want holes to let the air in. So you'd have this one here has got wire walls with lots of air holes in to let the air in for aerobic respiration. Because there's quite a large pile of compost, the microorganisms themselves will generate heat, so they will keep it warm. You would shred the organic material up so there's a larger surface area. You might also add some detritivores in here, like worms, so that it happens faster. And you might add some extra decomposers if you want. If you feel it's drying out, you could add some water, or you can put like a plastic sheet over the top so that water doesn't escape to keep it moist. So in summary, detritivores are the first thing that come along, the maggots, etc. They provide a larger surface area for the decomposers, which are the bacteria and fungi, to break down the remains and return the nutrients to the soil. Conditions needed for aerobic decay or decomposition are oxygen for respiration, warmth to speed up chemical reactions. You don't want it more than 45 degrees because it'll denature the enzymes involved in chemical reactions. If it's too cold, the enzyme control reactions will be too slow. So you want optimum warmth, like 37 degrees. You'd also want moisture to prevent the microbes from drying out. And those are the conditions that are needed for decay. And the uses of decay at home or in industry is you can use them for compost heaps for gardeners and also in sewage treatment works. Okay, this is what I normally do in class, but which organisms start the decay process? Obviously detritivores, which is maggots and worms. Which microorganisms digest everything else? Decomposers, which are bacteria and fungi. What conditions are needed for decay? Well, you need oxygen, warmth and moisture. Why are those conditions needed for decay? Warmth to speed up chemical reactions, oxygen for respiration, and moisture to prevent the drying out. How do humans exploit the decay process? They can use it for sewage treatment and in compost heaps. So now there's required practical on decay of milk. So you need to know the independent variable, dependent variable, and the control variable. So I will put a link for a good video of the required practical.